All right, guys, so we're going to be talking about the Death Scourge event here that's going to be coming up in a couple of days on the 22nd. I wanted to go over the teams, like the best teams that you can use here for the Death Scourge event. Disclaimer, I am not a tryhard, right? So a lot of the teams that I'm going to recommend here are not tryhard teams, just kind of giving you some different variations and some thoughts. Also, this is not a specific, you have to use this in order to be able to do it. It's more of a guide. Utilize what's on your roster. This is more of a way to kind of just give you some thoughts here on what I use, what was successful, what potentially you could use as well as you go through it. Now, just as a quick reminder for the nodes, you're going to go through minions first, then there's going to be the hero section. Then after heroes, you're going to go through your required team for node 5 and then node 10, right? So whether you want to use your Wakandans or War Dogs or use your Bionic Avengers, then there's the non-legendary mutant section, and then you have your legendary section, and then you go back to node 10 again, where you have to use Bionic Avengers or Wakandans or War Dogs. That is your decision. Now, for the first two nodes where you have your minions, this is what I did the last time. Now, the best team is going to be the Ravagers, right? Like that has already been out there. The 3 Ravager characters, so Bruiser, Boomer, Stitcher, those are those three characters alongside what I see a lot of people use is Merc Lieutenant and then Merc Riot Guard. So that's the best team that you can use to get through those first 2 minion sections. Depending on what difficulty it is, those are going to be the best team across the board. Now, what I did the last time here is that the event came about a week earlier than I was anticipating it. And so therefore I was not able to build up my Ravagers at that time. I just didn't really have them. They were only maybe gear tier. They were pretty low. They were pretty low then. So I was not able to kind of build them up in time in order to be able to do the event. So what I did is I did build up my AIM team. I know, very gross, but this is what I did. I used AIM Monstrosity, AIM Assaulter, AIM Researcher, and I was going to bring up Merc Riot Guard to gear tier 14, but I realized while I was doing the nodes that I actually didn't need it to be any higher than that. So therefore, I left them at G13. But this is the team that I use. They did very well in Node 1. Remember that you do have those scourges that you can equip that, help them to revive. They flip negative effects into positive effects, things like that, right? So therefore, a high investment on minions is not necessarily required in order to be able to do this. You just kind of keep that in mind. For the second node, I did end up using the Ravagers and these 2 characters right here. Those are my next highest minion characters to then sack a little bit in that second node and then go back in and clean up with this team. Once again, you don't have to do it that way. That's the way that I did it because I was doing a 1.5 million run. Once again, not super sweaty. So that's the reason. That's how I did it. Got through the first 2 nodes there. Now for your hero section, there's 3 teams that I put down here. I have Eternals with Weaver, Kestrel, Cap Sam. There's the Skill Ray team that you can use, like Shang-Chi, Kestrel with the Secret Avengers. There's also this team right here, which I'll talk about now. This is a Dorky Dad recommended team here for your hero section. The hero section is not hard, but you can use it to prep for your non-legendary mutant section, right? So what the idea here is you bring in the Eternals, you're going with Cyclops and Storm and Magic, and you use Magic to build up the charges here for Storm and then also Cyclops, so that when you go into that non-legendary mutant section in Node 2, you're going to be able to pop off with them, pop off with Cyclops, pop off with Storm. I'm using Beast here to be able to get through that kind of like that first wave, which is a little insane. So that's kind of what you can use this hero section to do. So that's kind of the recommended team in order to be able to do that. Once again, if you're kind of being super sweaty, or even if you're not being super sweaty, it's actually very helpful as well. But there's a lot of options that you do have available for your hero section. Realistically, you can throw in characters. So I wouldn't use Red Hulk or Gambit because you want to use those characters for your other sections. Same thing with Rogue here, but there's other characters that you could use, like Squirrel Girl would be a good option for you to use there. There's Deathpool that you can use as well. I wouldn't use Psylocke. There is, even if you wanted to use I was going to say Infinity Watch, but I forgot Nebula is a villain, so you wouldn't be able to use her in that section there. But we talked about Squirrel Girl. There's a couple different options, right? There's Young Avengers, that you can use in these sections too. So it's going to be kind of up to how you want to play it, what you have available on your roster. But I would just stay away from legendary characters, stay away from any mutant characters, because you're going to want to use those characters later on in future nodes. All right, and then if we're jumping into the other teams here, for your once you get to, this is node 5 now, right? Once you get to node 5, this team shouldn't be here. Once you get to node 5, what we found is that the war dogs, so originally Wakanda's was the recommendation. It was, hey, use M'Baku, use Killmonger for those waves. But depending on what scourges you're equipping, like for instance, if you're equipping one where they get immunity, Nakia works a little bit better here because you're able to use Nakia to strip the buffs with her basic attack. So it actually works out a little bit better to use Nakia. Now, of course, if you're not putting on those scourges, then maybe it doesn't matter to you. Maybe you can then use the full Wakanda team. I just noticed that when I did it, that it was better to use Nakia because she was able to strip those buffs with her basic. And it kind of helped out. And she does adjacent, attacks, adjacent targets to do it too. So therefore that helps out quite a bit. So that's the reason why this is what I ended up using. Although I did try to use the Wakandas first and I realized that was probably not the best direction to go. And based on the scourges that I did have equipped here, you can use the Bionic Avengers here. I think you're probably going to want to save the Bionic Avengers though to sack for node 10 and then go back in with your War Dogs team. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So that's the reason why I say here, like for node 5, probably the best team that you can use there. Then we get over to your non-legendary mutant section, which is right after that. This is what I use. I use a combination of a couple of things here. So, but this I think is what I initially used was Emma with the rest of the Unlimited X-Men team because you can't use legendary characters, right? So I was able to use this. I think a lot of players are going to be building up this team because you need them for Apocalypse, so therefore it's going to make sense to kind of use this. If you don't have, let's say, all the Unlimited X-Men characters, there's a couple of different variations that you can use. There's Dabros, there's Dabros with like Wolverine, there's Polaris, there's Sabretooth that's there. There's also characters like Dark Beast and Nemesis and Psylocke. There's a couple characters that you can use there to make combinations of teams. There's Beast. I'm going to tell you what I did on the last time around. So I used this on the first node. It kind of went through the node very easily. And then on that second node, because we had already had the charges built up for Cyclops and then Storm, we went in with Emma because Emma survived. And then what we did here is that we used Beast to give offense up over to Storm and then Cyclops, and then when they were able to do their ultimates, which then cleared out a wave here and made things significantly easier for me on that second node. So first node, I use Unlimited with Emma, and then on the second node, we use Beast. We use this team here to be able to get through it, and we did pretty well where that's concerned. The second node, though, that they didn't completely clear the node, so I did have to kind of go in with a cleanup team, which is then I use the Dabros, Polaris, Sabretooth, Wolverine. I actually, to be honest, I think I may have actually used Dark Beast and Nemesis instead of using Sabretooth and Wolverine. It's kind of all blurry. It was so long ago. But that's kind of what I did to be able to kind of get through it there. So that's a strategy that you can use. You don't have to try hard it once again. Just giving you options of what you can do, for these particular nodes. And then for your legendary section, a couple options that you can do here. I think, of course, if you've been lucky enough to get Morgan Le Fay, Omega Red, Red Hulk, Rogue, those are going to be your best bets. Even if you already have Archangel, right? Those are going to be, your best bet to be able to use for those sections too. There's also, of course, you can then use Magneto as a part of your Dead Sea team, so then you can use him there because you're going to be using Dead Sea for your legendary, for your Apocalypse Unlock, but then also your raid content as well. So that's pretty good there. Don't use Shuri. One of the runs that I did, I used Shuri, forgetting that I have to use her for because I already had to say a save squad for Dark Dimension, so I ended up just pulling that in there and using Shuri with the legendary Horseman characters in Omega Red, and then it completely screwed up my run. I had to reset and go back in order to because I really needed Shuri to have her defense up or available and ready to go, for that last node. So there's a couple different things that you can do. There's also Adam Warlock too, right? So if you do have Adam Warlock, you have him built up, you can also use him for these nodes as well. The legendary sections weren't very tough, they weren't very hard. There's certain nuances to it a little bit, but you can kind of get a feel for it going in there. And I think that you'll be fine. And then the last team here for Note 10, what I found to be the best way to go about doing this is throwing in the Bionic Avengers first. I have a decent sized Bionic Avengers team. I don't have these guys at level 90 as of yet, so I need to work on doing that. But I threw in the Bionic Avengers, and the whole goal is to be able to kind of kill Echo and get rid of her, because she's going to stop your assists, and you want your War Dogs. You're going to finish off with your War Dogs here. You want your War Dogs to be able to get the assist from Okoye. So you're kind of going in there with the Bionic Avengers. You're sacking it first. You're trying to get rid of Echo, and then you're going to come back in here with your War Dogs team, which is going to be your better team to use in Note 10. Once again, it's just because of some of the scourges kind of really negatively impact Bionic Avengers a little bit there. So it's a little bit easier for you to actually clean up and use War Dogs. Who would have thought it, right, guys, that the War Dogs team was actually the better team that you can use for Note 5 and then also Note 10. But once again, if you're not try-harding, if you're not super throwing on a bunch of scourges, you can use Bionic Avengers probably for both nodes, and you'll be fine, be okay there. It's just depending on what scourges you are equipping on these sort of specific nodes. But hopefully this is helpful information for you guys here. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions about anything in particular. Happy to help out there. Leave it in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel here, haven't subscribed already to the channel, then subscribe. Also hit the notification bell. Leave a like as well, because that does help out the YouTube algorithm. Check out the links that are down below in the description to our social media. Also, check out a link to my YouTube channel where we cover comic information as well. Marvel, DC Comics, anime, things like that as well. That link is also down below in the description. Check out the Patreon, which is another way for you to support the channel here for just $1 a month as well. But hopefully this helps out with your Scourge run here for Death Scourge. Appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, guys, y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe. Bye.